Okay, good morning, everybody. We're having a status conference here in Docket 2019-0178. This is the purpose of the status conference is well, it's twofold. One, this docket has essentially been, from the Commission's perspective, paused for almost the last 2 years. So this is our chance to get back together with everybody, hear what's happened from the perspective of all the parties to this docket, and then hopefully discuss some of the next steps about how we move forward here. Thanks to the folks from Sustainable Molokai and the WHOI that provided this proposed agenda, which I think we're going to work off of for today. So maybe since we've got maybe we'll just do a quick round of introductions and then get started. So why don't I ask folks from Molokai first to introduce yourselves, then we'll go to folks from Hawaiian Electric. Then if we've got folks from the Consumer Advocate, then I see we've got folks from the Energy Office, and then finally we'll round up with folks from the Commission. So Audrey, would you please lead us off?
I would be happy to. Aloha, everybody. I'm Audrey Newman. I'm on the Sustainable Molokai board, and I'm also part of the executive group for the Molokai Clean Energy WHOI. Live on Molokai 21 years. Thank you. Do you want me to bounce it to the next person?
That'd be great, yes.
Great, okay. So Molokai, that's how we're gonna do it. Leilani, could you go next, please?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Leilani Chow. I am the Energy Sovereignty Coordinator with Sustainable Molokai. And I've been with Sustainable Molokai since 2010, working on energy efficiency programs within my community, and most recently as the coordinator for the Molokai Clean Energy WHOI. I will pass it to Tihani.
Aloha, Tihani Ka'alekahi, Executive Director for Sustainable Molokai. Been with the organization for a little over 2 years. So I'll popcorn it over to Kalehua.
Aloha, my name is Kalehua Sproul-Ambastero. I am the Molokai Wayfinder for Hawaii State Energy Office, and I've been working with Sustainable Molokai for the past year. Born and raised in Molokai. Aloha. Is there anybody else?
Sonia. I think I just saw Sonia.
Okay, Sonia.
Sonia, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Am I alone in that?
Yeah, I can't hear her either. Let's go to Auntie Lori, and then we'll come back to Sonia. And Sonia, maybe you can sort out your sound. Auntie Lori? You're muted.
I'm having trouble on this end as well.
Yeah. Mike, we might need to, just in the interest of time, could we have people introduce themselves when they speak? Maybe you could do the PUC.
Okay, yeah, why don't we do that? I guess that makes sense. If that's okay with other folks, maybe we'll
just because we're up to 43 people.
I see. Yes, we're growing. So all right, why don't we do that then? Sorry for the delay.
No problem at all.
Okay, so at least on the Commission side, my name is Mike Wallerstein. I'm the attorney on this docket, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Kauai.
Good morning, everyone. Naomi Kauai, Commissioner for the PUC. I will pass it over to Commissioner Yost.
Thank you, Commissioner Kauai. This is Colin Yost. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming together. And I'll pass it to Caroline Ishida.
Thank you. This is Caroline Ishida. I'm Chief Counsel of the PUC. Good to be here and see all of you. And I will pass things over to Grace.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is Grace Ruff, the Chief of Policy and Research at the PUC. And I think I will pass it to Debbie Shin.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Debbie Shin. I'm the Chief Engineer at the PUC. And I believe Stephen Mariani is here. I'll pass it on to him.
Thanks, Debbie. Steve Mariani, Senior Utility Analyst with the Commission, and I will pass it to Eric Sipper.
Eric, I can't hear you.
He said
Still
I
can't
could hear him
hear you.
over the cubicle wall, but he's going to put his microphone on.
Do we have other folks from the commission? Not seeing anyone, but if you are here, I apologize for skipping over you. But in the interest of time, maybe we should just get started with the reason why we're here. So I'm going to turn things over to you, Audrey, and I'd love to hear more about what you've been doing in the last 2 years, the filing that you submitted in this docket, and yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Mahalo, Mike. And in fact, I'm going to take a role of the facilitator in this meeting. So the lead is Leilani. We've got a little bit of opening protocol, but just to set the stage for everyone, mahalo everyone for coming. We're so grateful for this opportunity to report back on the Molokai Community Energy Resilience Action Plan, what we learned, how we learned it, and the priorities for the community to reach its renewable energy future. And really look forward to a discussion today between everyone about how we implement the community's plan. So Kalehua, could you start us off with an opening pule and then pass it on to Tehani?
Sure. Let's bow our heads. Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thy children humbly bow our heads before thee with gratitude in our hearts for all the wonderful blessings that thou hast bestowed upon each and every one of us. We thank thee, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity that we have to gather here to meet for this wonderful plan that has been put together. We thank thee, Heavenly Father, for all those who have participated in this, and we ask thee that thy spirit may be with us and bless the presenters, that they may have thy spirit with thee. And we ask thee, Heavenly Father, that each of us may be safe throughout the day. We love thee and say these things in the name of thy worthy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Hallelujah, Kalehua. Tehani, could you open us up?
Thank you, Kalehua. Aloha, Tihani Ka'alekahi. For those who didn't get my introduction earlier, I am the Executive Director of Sustainable Molokai, the organization responsible for developing the Molokai CERAP. We know that the devastation from the fires on Maui and Hawaii Island are a priority for you, and we continue to send our love and aloha to those communities. And mahalo you for all your time and attention on our community-led planning today. So over 2 years ago, the PUC gave the people of Molokai a gift. Rather than continue to stay with a process for renewable energy planning that was frustrating for everyone, the PUC allowed the people of Molokai to define their own energy future. We accepted that gift with transparency and accountability, collaboration and teamwork. We developed the Molokai Community Energy Resilience Action Plan, or CERAP for short. For the PUC, this started as a docket filing. For Molokai, this plan represents thousands of hours of community involvement and input to achieve our vision of developing a portfolio of clean energy projects to achieve 100% renewable energy independence for Molokai that is feasible, respectful of Molokai's culture and environment, and strongly supported by the community through an island-wide planning process that is community initiated, driven, and led. This process has been our kuleana, and we have done everything we can to give you a path forward that is in the public's best interest. Now we need your help to provide our people and generations to come with a future that honors our ancestors and gives us hope. Molokai is known as a place where people are able to say no to developments that do not align with their goals and values. Also, the community makes do with less, and we need your guidance and support to help implement the clean energy solutions that Molokai will finally say yes to. Energy independence will change everything for Molokai, and the adoption of community-centered planning processes like CERAP will change everything for all of Hawaii. Please join us in making this happen. Mahalo. I'll turn it over to Leilani.
Mahalo Tihani. And aloha pumehana kako. Again, my name is Leilani, and I have the honor of representing my Molokai community here at today's PUC Status Conference. For the past 2 years, it has been my responsibility and privilege to facilitate Molokai's community-led energy planning. Much of this work was done through my position as the coordinator for the Molokai Clean Energy Hui. There are 2 main purposes for today's Status Conference: to share our findings from CERAP with the Commission, and to ask for your guidance and support for how we will work together to implement Molokai's community plan. We have 3 main agenda items. The first is to revisit the Molokai dockets that we asked for PUC guidance on back in 2021. At the June 2021 Status Conference, the community presented our recommendations on 2 dockets. Now that CERAP is completed, we'd like to circle back and update our recommendations, our recommended next steps for the CBRE RFP docket in number 2015-0389, as well as the Molokai RFP in docket number 2019-0178, which includes the HECO proposed Pala'au RFP and the Molokai plan. Our second agenda item is to share highlights and next steps from CERAP's priority project portfolio and ask how the PUC and HECO can continue working with the community to move these projects forward. And agenda item number 3 is to share lessons learned from Molokai CERAP process, and again, ask for your guidance on how the PUC and HECO can provide ongoing regulatory, technical, and financial support for community planning to ensure meaningful community engagement on Molokai and statewide. So today's agenda was formatted Molokai style, which means that each section will be less of a lecture, hopefully, and more of an interactive two-way conversation. Each agenda item will include time for questions and discussions before we move on to the next agenda item. Again, our main goal is to hear from you all on how we can work together to implement Molokai's community plan. Are there any questions so far? Okay, if not, we will move on to how do we get here and what is CERAP? For decades, the Molokai community has been asking for renewable energy, and for decades, the conventional energy planning and development process has failed to produce acceptable project proposals. As early as 2017, Molokai was projected to be at 100% renewable energy, but by 2020, Molokai has still not added a single utility-scale energy generation project to the grid. Also in 2020, the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, or Hui for short, formed to address some of the challenges preventing us from making progress towards being a clean energy community. A major issue, if not the biggest issue, is the fact that the current PUC and HECO energy decision-making processes do not provide meaningful space for a well-informed community to influence important decisions that directly impact their daily lives. And in June 2021, Molokai became the first community to be granted a status conference with the PUC, and this is where a team of Molokai representatives from the Hui, Sustainable Molokai, and Molokai's own community co-op, Ho'ahu Energy Cooperative Molokai, asked for deal-breaker amendments to be made to the CBRE RFP docket and for the PUC to pause the utility-led planning in the Molokai RFP docket so that the community could develop their own holistic energy plan for their island based on thorough, timely, and unbiased technical analysis by the community's chosen partner, which was HNEI. In September 2021, the PUC made an unprecedented order in support of community-led planning, which allowed the Molokai CERAP to take place with the full support of both the PUC and HECO. The CERAP process officially began in January of 2022 and ended in June of 2023. During this time, the community built a leadership structure, designed a process, nurtured important alliances, learned from one another, engaged technical experts, listened, deliberated, planned, and developed a shared vision for their future. The final CERAP 1.0 report and appendices was filed in July of 2023, along with another PUC status conference request to be able to share important CERAP findings. This request was granted, which brings us to today's status conference as the first step in resuming the previously paused Molokai RFP docket. Okay, so I'm going to introduce this project the same way that we introduced it to the community. I'd like to share a short video that we made at the very, very beginning of CERAP that provides a brief overview and community's perspective on why this project and process is so important to us. So let me stop sharing that screen and move to this one. We have a very exciting planning process that's coming up. It's called the Molokai Community Energy Resilience Action Plan, or Molokai CERAP for short. The main goal for the Molokai CERAP is to reach 100% renewable energy generation as an island in a way that's feasible and that is also respectful of our culture and our lifestyle here on Molokai.
You know, I mean, the world already knows oil is just not the solution, and it's harmful to our climate, to our environment, and so different ways where we can draw upon more natural energy just makes good sense.
So when you think of ancestral knowledge, knowledge that came from the kupuna, like the mo'olelo of Maui and how he snared the sun, he did that because he wanted his mom's kapa to dry. Think of that mo'olelo and apply it to today. How can we utilize the sun's energy to help benefit us? How can we utilize the makani? How can we utilize the honua? How can we utilize Kanaloa, the ocean?
The CERAP planning process is about 12 months long, and the first 6 to 7 months are really going to be focused on educating our community. You know, why can't everybody have rooftop solar? Why is our electric bill cost so much? You know, where do the energy decisions get made? And who makes those decisions?
Now's the time for us to maybe ask questions like, what is renewable energy? What are our options? And then coming together and talking story and seeing, you know, what works best for us.
The reason why I'm so interested in renewable technologies, you know, I work with STEM, I work with students, and the science already shows that definitely we have to start moving towards that. And especially for someplace with limited resources such as Molokai, we should already be moving on it now.
I believe it benefits the island and our businesses. You know, cuts down on expenses and stuff, so you can pass it on to the community.
There's a lot of options out there for us as far as technology and as far as energy storage. We've got wind, solar, wave energy, pumped hydro, waste to energy. There's a lot of solutions and a lot of really great examples of how those have worked in other places that are similar to Molokai.
This plan cannot be successful without each and every one of you.
We have to do our part to follow through and make sure we can keep Molokai. And the only way we can do that is to get involved.
Okay. Okay. Mahalo for watching our video. CERAP is the community's solution for addressing the chronic problems of top-down energy planning, including the breakdown of trust in energy institutions, cultural conflicts, environmental degradation, and the inequity of past renewable energy programs driven by outside interests. Every single one of these issues were successfully addressed by having the community design a planning, decision-making process based on what they needed and wanted to know in order to make smart energy decisions for our future. And this was also done by tailoring place-based engagement methods to reflect when, where, and how the community said they wanted to participate. This graphic that I'm screen sharing right now represents the actual planning process that took place. It looks complex, and I don't want you to worry about reading all the little words right now, because it really comes down to this. The Molokai community, the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, Sustainable Molokai, and HNEI started on independent but parallel paths to build a dedicated and trustworthy leadership team, and to firmly align themselves and CERAP's scope of work to the community's goals and values. From January of 2022 on, these 4 groups worked together intensely on all tasks, such as spending the first 6 months building a strong factual foundation of over 19 energy briefings that were shared with the community, before the 4 interactive and island-wide rounds of project co-design that took place from September to November. Each round of co-design led to a more in-depth analysis by HNEI, which allowed for more detailed project co-design by the community. And this learning and analysis-driven co-design process was repeated 4 times and produced 4 separate drafts of the CERAP project portfolio, with the final draft of the CERAP project portfolio being submitted to the PUC in July 2023. But a portfolio of strongly supported renewable energy projects that will take the entire island to 100% renewable energy was not CERAP's only achievement. CERAP in particular pioneered the development of a renewable energy roadmap for Molokai, as well as this vetted community-based, community-led co-design process. By adapting the energy planning process to meet community where they're at, CERAP was able to achieve unprecedented amounts of community leadership and community engagement, documented in the over 2,800 individual conversations with community members, the invaluable community input that was collected through 713 surveys, 30+ focus group workshops, and at CERAP pop-up booths at 17 different community-wide events. This tremendous amount of positive community engagement has resulted in a community who is now fully engaged, informed, and ready to continue shaping their own energy future. CERAP also achieved consensus and support on identifying 3 overarching and interconnected renewable energy goals that specifically focus on emergency preparedness, disaster resilience, and fair renewable energy access for all. CERAP developed a clean energy roadmap that will take Molokai to 100% renewable energy by 2045 or sooner, and that also includes the portfolio of 10 renewable energy projects designed by the community and critical community values that are translated into energy system requirements that will guide the development of future renewable energy projects and policy. And CERAP also produced a detailed report that documents Molokai's experience, the methodologies we used, and the co-design process, as well as an appendice that consolidates Molokai's additional energy planning context, all of the technical resources and outreach materials, making CERAP an adaptable and replicable tool for other communities, like Lahaina, who want to learn from and adapt this new approach. And that brings us to our first agenda item, which is Molokai's PUC docket recommendations. So back at the first status conference in 2021, we discussed these 2 Molokai relevant dockets, the CBRE RFP and the Molokai RFP. In the CBRE RFP docket, the Molokai team asked for the PUC's approval to work directly with HECO to make critical changes to that RFP that would encourage a fair and competitive RFP process and produce CBRE proposals that the community would actually consider. With the support of the PUC, Ho'ahu and HECO were able to come to an agreement and make those critical changes. Ho'ahu worked closely with the community to co-design 2 CBRE projects that were ultimately awarded by HECO and will soon be submitted for PUC approval. Because of Ho'ahu's rigorous and collaborative co-design process, the Molokai community is in full support of both Ho'ahu CBRE projects, and it is our strong recommendation that the PUC fast-track the approval process by the end of 2023 so that Ho'ahu can stick to their original project timeline and meet important financial deadlines. Regarding the Molokai RFP, our original recommendation back in 2021 was to pause both the Pala'au RFP and Molokai plan to allow HECO to fully support and provide important data during Molokai's CERAP planning process. Our request was also granted by the PUC, and HECO staff attended every single MCH meeting to provide helpful insight and data that kept Molokai's planning grounded in the realities of our energy needs and physical grid capacity. As of September 1st, the Molokai RFP docket has been resumed as per the original agreement to pause the docket until the completion of the Molokai CERAP. Because the CERAP process was so successful in garnering island-wide participation and support, the Molokai community strongly recommends using CERAP as the guiding document for all future energy development on Molokai. And we ask that the HECO and the PUC not propose any utility scale projects that are outside of the CERAP project portfolio without going through the CERAP process first. So we're going to pause here for any questions or comments.
Leilani, would it help to have questions or comments ordered by, for starting with the commission and then from maybe Hawaiian Electric and then from other folks, or are you comfortable just taking all comers as they come?
I think the order you suggested is good. I wasn't sure who was allowed to ask questions. I was thinking it was like just the PUC and HECO.
No, this is an open forum, but I do want to give priority at least to any commissioners or any commission staff that have questions about what we've heard so far. So now's a good time.
That sounds like a great approach, Mike. And I'm just so you know, I offered. I'm going to spell Leilani during the question period just to give her a break since she's doing all the presentations. So are you going to facilitate the questions?
I'm happy to do that. Yes.
Or would you like me to? Either way.
Oh, well, if you would like to, that's okay with me too.
Are there any questions from the PUC? We'd love to hear your thoughts, if you can share them at this point, or anything about the process that was not clear or you'd like to know more about.
Anand, I see you've come off mute, but I can't hear you.
No, I was waiting if anybody else want to have any questions. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Leilani, thank you so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. This is very helpful. I just want to ask a quick question regarding the for CBRE, the RFP. You mentioned that you want to fast track PUC approval. This is for, I'm understanding the modified mid-tier standard form contracts, right? The two of them for the 250 kW and the 2.2 megawatt projects, right?
Yes.
And then when you said fast track, can you explain? I mean, I know you said, so you're expecting maybe PUC approval by, end of the year, right? Is that what you're hoping for, or you're requesting?
Yeah, from the original project timeline, we were hoping to get, or Ho'ahu was hoping to get PUC approval by the end of 2023. Yeah, and they really, it would be great if we could stick to the timeline so that they can meet their financial deadlines.
Yeah. No, I understand. No, I just wanted to confirm that because I know there was a lot of back and forth discussion about submitting it, and I think it was initially thought to be submitted earlier. The Center for, I know, but you guys have to go back and forth. So I was just kind of confirming if that's still the timeline to get it done, or have commission decision by end, or request a commission decision by the end of this year. And do you have a timeline for your project, like your COD when you kind of your anticipated estimated COD for your projects?
So, Colin, there's actually going to be a short presentation on the CBRE project specifically in the next section. So those are great questions. And that way we can let Ho'ahu and Shake, the organizations, they'll be presenting. So they may answer the question in their presentation, and if not, they can answer directly about the details.
Yeah, I'll hold my question to them. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. I think the key point here is that these projects have strong and wide community support. Oahu and Shake went through like gold standard community engagement in designing these projects. And so there's certainly no need on the community side to do any more process. And we would just appreciate, everyone's eager. I'm getting people asking me, when can I sign up, right? Everyone's really eager for these projects to move forward. So we just really appreciate it very much from the community side if the PUC could move these ahead. They'll be the first utility scale renewable on the island and accessible, you know, to the people who need it the most and haven't been able to put rooftop solar or other kinds of renewable energy on their homes. So that's where this this recommendation is coming from. Any other questions or comments on the process leading up to here, or on the our request to continue to pause the Molokai RFP? Oh, we haven't said that yet, have we? Oh, so we'll stop here. We'll get to that later. But to use CERAP as the guiding document, you might not be able to respond to that yet, but that's really our hope. That since the community has been so clear about what works for them, that we can all use the community's portfolio as we move ahead on renewable energy development for Molokai.
Audrey, I see we've got a question that came through in the chat as well from Kylie. I don't know if you're able to see that.
No, I can't.
It says, what is the project submission date for the two
CBRE projects?
So the contracts are expected to be submitted by the end of the month.
So it looks like we're through. Any other PUC questions? Any questions from Hiko?
Okay.
Does Hiko want to confirm it's going to be submitted by the end of the month?
That is, Audrey, this is Becca. That's what we're working towards. I believe those contracts were circulated this morning for execution by the parties. So we need to follow by the end of the month. And I don't think we have any further questions. I know we got a preview from you guys last week, so I think we had a chance to ask a question.
Thank you so much, Becca. We really appreciate you guys moving that ahead as quickly as you can. Any questions? Mike, I forget, was there a third group you wanted to kind of ask first before we open it to everyone?
I see Scott from the Consumer Advocate is here, so I'd like to give them a chance. And then, yeah, open it up to everybody.
Great. Any questions from the Consumer Advocate?
Thanks, Mike. This is Scott. I apologize to everybody. I can't get my camera working here, but I actually think Dean might be on the call as well. So I don't have any questions right now, other than to ask before I forget if these slides can be made available. They're really helpful.
Yeah, it's our plan to post them on the dockets right after this meeting. We just we're working on them until very short before. So thank you. Any questions from anybody else?
Hi, this is Dean with the Consumer Advocates Office. Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if this is going to be addressed in maybe a later part of the presentation, but the recommendation that suggests or requests perhaps that the CERAP process be used as the guiding plan for all future energy development on Molokai. Is that, when it says all future energy development, is that primarily just for generation, or should we take it more expansively in terms of any energy related development on Molokai?
What are everybody making for breakfast?
What a great question. Leilani, do you want to take this, or would you like me to try?
Wait, testing.
Oh, somebody has their microphone on, and they're we're hearing testing, and something about breakfast. So whoever you are, please mute. I'll try. Dean, you're absolutely right. The CERAP really focused on generation. It also flagged some like important issues around interconnection and transmission. The infrastructure on Molokai, we've learned is pretty challenging for everyone. You know, HECO, a developer, etc. We didn't get into the details of the other parts of the energy system. So, but I think if you ask the community, they'd want a similar process to look at those other issues around upgrading our infrastructure. For sure, we would love to have some kind of a collaborative process around updating the tariffs for Molokai so they could really work for the community. So I think what you're hearing is a strong interest from the community to really be a full partner with the PUC and the consumer advocate and HECO in how renewable energy continues to be, you know, rolled out for our island. The process really worked. And when we don't go through that process, we tend to run into, you know, opposition and issues. So our recommendations focus on generation, but I think the principles of this participatory process could apply to all the pieces. Does that make sense, Dean?
Yeah, I think so. Although I have one follow-up question in the sense that if there's a project that's needed to address, say, a more urgent need, would CERAP still be recommended, or do you envision a different process to allow that urgent need to be addressed in a more timely fashion?
What a great question. I really appreciate you really helping us think this through. Of course, you know, if there's a wire down and it needs to be fixed, we want them to just go do it. I think I think you can always, you know, now that you've got a community group that's really informed and motivated to be a constructive partner with you guys, it might be nice to check in just so we could help you flag things if there's something in that quick response that might be problematic or something we could flag that might be helpful. So I think these are all things we should explore further, Dean. We haven't discussed them. I'm just guessing, but I just would say that the intent is for the community and the people who have taken leadership for the community to really help HECO and the PUC and the CA, you know, be successful on our island. Yeah.
No, thank you for that, or for those responses.
You're welcome. And maybe we can flag as an action item to have a side conversation with the consumer advocate about these processes to come up with a, you know, a clearer answer for you.
Can I ask a question?
This is Mariani. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Leilani, if you were gonna continue on
I was
that
just
track.
going to add something real quick. So our community's emergency preparedness and disaster resilience was like a major theme for all of the projects that came out of CERAP. And we, you know, did our homework and talked to our emergency response teams on Molokai and asked for, you know, what is the most likely emergency scenarios or disaster scenarios for our island, and really did our best to plan a lot of our projects around those potential scenarios. But also along the way, we've collected a lot of community input on other emergency scenarios that we might face. And so depending on what situation comes up, CERAP probably has some community guidance on the situation that would be helpful. Okay.
So any other questions from the rest of the group?
Yeah, I had Audrey, if that's okay. I was wondering, I know Audrey, I've seen you attend some of the integrated grid planning, the IGP meetings, and maybe others from your group have joined as well. So I was wondering if you had conversations with Hawaiian Electric on how those two processes, the CERAP and the IGP, might have potential ways to collaborate. And Hawaiian Electric just recently finished up their final IGP report. So since your group has taken such a comprehensive sort of undertaking of planning for energy, I think that there could definitely be ways that those two processes could co-mingle and have co-benefits. But I also wonder sort of if Hawaiian Electric has offered any vision for how the two can work in companionship.
Thank you, Stephen. And could you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a utility analyst. I'm also on the integrated grid planning team on the PUC side, on the commission side. So we're reviewing that IGP plan currently.
Great, thank you so much. The honest answer is no. We haven't had any, real meaningful conversations about how those two could be mutually supportive. HECO was really wonderful about basically pausing their planning for Molokai and letting us go ahead. And I'll let them speak to their process. But what we observed was that everything that they did while we were in the CERAP process, they just left Molokai out. So they were waiting for our, for what came from this community planning. And we haven't had a discussion about integrating the two. Does someone from HECO want to talk about how you might want to do that?
Hi, this is Becca. Correct that we haven't had a discussion yet on how to integrate that. So I think that's something that still needs to be discussed. And I think one of the things that we have discussed though, is that still part of the CERAP that didn't occur yet is the detailed technical and cost analysis for interconnection, and then also just the cost of the projects. And so I think the team from Molokai will be presenting more on that later in the presentation, but I think that's a step that needs to occur for these projects still, that Hawaiian Electric is looking forward to participating in and learning more about those two aspects before we see how best to move forward.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Henry, did you want to say what IGP and the climate hardening documents do not have Molokai specific plan?
Right. We've raised that in proceedings, but as far as I know, HECO is putting on hold transmission planning for Molokai until Molokai more addresses where they want to go.
That's my understanding too. Okay, any final questions on this section? Or we'll move into, more of the details about the projects and the way forward that is already underway. Last call. Thank you all so much. Leilani, back to you.
Okay, so moving on to our second agenda item, which is to share the highlights and next steps on CERAP's 10 priority projects. This is the visual representation of Molokai's Clean Energy Roadmap. These 10 portfolio projects address energy needs across the whole island and were thoroughly vetted by the community using the findings from HNEI's unbiased technical analysis. This roadmap will take Molokai from the current 14% renewable energy generated by rooftop PV to 100% energy independence. Each project in this portfolio was carefully designed to provide Molokai with energy systems that increase Molokai's overall emergency preparedness by strategically decentralizing our energy generation, ensure safe and reliable energy resilience for our community, through innovative technology and interconnection configurations, support the regenerative management of Molokai's resources, and provide equitable and economically feasible renewable energy access for all. In the CERAP report, we categorize the 10 projects based on timing, strategy, collaboration, and accountability. Renewable energy projects that are ready for action use proven and available technologies like solar, wind, and batteries. They provide large benefits for both INA and community and may be eligible for unprecedented funding opportunities. These 5 projects are ready to move from concept to project-specific scoping and co-design. And I'm gonna go through all of them and share just a tiny bit about these projects. So the community's top priority project is on-site renewable energy and storage systems for all of our critical infrastructure. This will immediately improve safety, security, and disaster resilience for all Molokai residents. Then we have fast-tracking community-owned CBRE projects at Pala'o and Kualapu'u. This will demonstrate that the people of Molokai can design, own, and manage affordable renewable energy projects. We have community-scale solar for Mauna Loa and West Molokai. This will begin decentralizing the Molokai grid and will increase reliability and resilience for the people of West Molokai. We have renewable energy projects that support homesteading. These will demonstrate self-governing Hawaiian communities can implement numerous renewable energy strategies to improve quality of life through energy independence. And project number 5 is individual renewable energy projects, both on and off the grid, that support the independence and resourcefulness of Molokai families, businesses, and organizations. The CERAP projects that were categorized as ready for a deep dive study and additional planning require longer lead times to evaluate the feasibility of these more complex, innovative, and/or higher cost technology solutions. And will require multi-agency collaboration and planning that currently does not exist outside of the Hui. So these 5 projects include a deep dive renewable energy study for the East End, which would ensure that renewable energy planning is integrated with all other important infrastructure planning for East Molokai, including transportation, disaster resilience, and climate change mitigation. Community-scale floating solar at the Kualapu'u Reservoir has the potential to provide substantial amounts of renewable energy to the most populated neighborhoods without building on valuable agricultural land. More study is required to understand the environmental impacts, economics, and implementation considerations. Pumped hydroelectric energy storage could use existing water resources and reduce the future use of chemical batteries needed to store energy. A large, complex project like this requires more investigation with multiple stakeholders and potentially 10+ years to implement. Firm renewable energy options for the last 10 to 20% are needed to ensure controllable and reliable electricity is available at all times. As Molokai makes immediate progress with its high priority projects, firm energy options like biofuels, waste to energy, and others can be researched and discussed. And electrical vehicle use on Molokai is increasing rapidly. Important EV issues need attention, such as vehicle maintenance and repair, charging infrastructure, and potential impacts on fuel costs. Since submitting the report in July, Molokai has already received both technical and financial support from state, federal, and local partners to move all 10 of our CERAP projects forward. This is not at all what we were expecting just a few months ago, but we're super excited and are going to share the progress CERAP has made and provide you with some updated timelines, outcomes, and next steps. Of course, the most important part is to hear from you all on how we can continue to collaborate. So I'll start us off by sharing about the technical assistance Molokai has been awarded through ETIP, which will cover renewable energy on critical infrastructure, floating solar, and pumped hydro. Then we'll pause for any questions or discussion, and I'll pass it to Auntie Lori, who will share the progress Molokai has made on Ho'ahu's CBRE projects. Then Liliana will share on Ho'ahu's off-grid solutions for Molokai residents. Sebastian will share about the C2C technical and financial support Molokai will receive to continue our feasibility analysis on the renewable energy for Mauna Loa and West Molokai, grid-tied solutions that support individual homes and homesteading, as well as the deep dive study on the energy infrastructure for East Molokai based on the effects of climate change and sea level rise. Then, because that is a pretty big chunk, we'll pause for questions and discussions. And then after that, I'll briefly go over Hawaii State Energy Office support for Molokai's discussions around our firm energy and clean transportation options. Okay, so starting with ETIP, the Energy Transition Initiative Partnership Project, or ETIP for short, provides remote and island communities with national lab level technology neutral technical expertise funded through the Department of Energy. This program employs community-driven approaches to help communities identify and plan for resilient clean energy solutions that increase their resilience, address community-specific challenges, and transform their energy systems. This project aligns perfectly with the purpose and work of the Hui and supports the community-led process and projects from CERAP. Molokai was one of 9 island communities selected to participate in ETIP's 3rd cohort, and the Molokai community is excited to hear lessons learned from ETIP cohorts 1 and 2 as we continue to refine our community-led planning process. NREL will lead the technical assistance team and match us with the appropriate deep energy sector experience and expertise to provide the following working outcomes. An integrated design for on-site renewable and storage systems for central Molokai critical infrastructure. The bulk of Molokai's critical infrastructure is actually located in central Molokai. This includes critical water pumps, emergency services, and first responders that are responsible for serving the entire island. ETIP will provide the technical assistance to conduct a feasibility and cost analysis for an 8 megawatt plus storage floating solar project on the Kualapu'u Reservoir. It's hard to tell from this picture, but this reservoir, which is also located in central Molokai, has about 95 acres of surface area. And the proposed 8 megawatt project would cover a little less than half of the reservoir and address all of central Molokai's energy needs, which is about 33% of our total energy load. The community is extremely interested to learn and discuss both the positive and negative effects floating solar will have on our island, and asks the ETIP technical analysis for a land-based project comparison of similar size, also located in central Molokai, so that we can make our decisions with no regret. Since this project will require collaboration from all reservoir user groups and agencies, we are asking ETIP to provide technical consultation support for our community and key stakeholders, especially during the co-design process, so that we can all get a better understanding of how required reservoir maintenance, upgrades, and operations will shape our solution options. And we've also asked for feasibility and cost analysis of pump hydro using the existing reservoir infrastructure. So pumped hydro is the community's preferred long-term renewable energy storage system and has been flagged for its potential to provide black start capabilities for our grid and a potential source of firm energy. So we're really excited to see what the feasibility analysis and cost analysis provides. Okay, so I know it sounds like we're asking for a whole lot here, but ETIP selected Molokai's application that included all of these asks for the 3 CERAP projects. And NREL is confident they have the right dedicated technical expertise capable of fulfilling the working outcomes. We're currently in the project scoping process and are expected to complete this phase ahead of schedule due to the level of detail and community consensus achieved in CERAP 1.0. Technical support can start as early as October 2023 and will continue for 12 to 18 months, putting the project's completion date around March 2025, but the exact date is TBD. So this project provides funding for the technical assistance only. The community is still responsible for raising funds to lead and facilitate the discussions within the community. Sustainable Molokai and the Hui are raising funds to fully support the community's kuleana in this project, but we really, really need help from the PUC, HECO, and others in order to be successful. So we've identified a few ways that the PUC can help, which is continuing to support Molokai's community-led planning by suspending the Molokai RFP docket for 3 years, and for the PUC to give permission for HECO to fully participate in the project co-design process starting as early as October 2023. And HECO, we would like to ask for your continued full participation and access to our important community data needed to assess the feasibility and costs of these projects. So we'll pause here to see if anyone has any clarifying questions or comments on the projects, feedbacks on our requests or next steps.
I have a quick comment to add, Leilani, and then we'll go through PUC, et cetera. I just want to say out loud that we understand that the feasibility and cost analysis for pumped hydro is a really big job. As Leilani said, it can be a decade-long process to do that kind of a project. And so what we're really asking ETIP is kind of an early first round cost analysis and identification of feasibility pros and cons, so that we could move into a more in-depth design if their expertise said yes, this is worth pursuing. So I just wanted to clarify that. The other thing is that people who know have told us that as we're in the scoping process, the details of the scope will almost certainly evolve. And so and we're right at the beginning of that. So this is what we requested in our application and what we presented in our first meetings and got a positive response, but we're very early in the process. So just stay tuned. I'm sure it will become even more concrete. The last point is the ETIP and the C2C are our next steps to respond to Becca's really important points, which is how can they incorporate these things into a plan if they don't have a sense of what the cost and implementation details might be. So we're really, really looking forward to HECO joining us in ETIP and C2C to make sure we together can identify all those essential factors that HECO needs to be able to fully integrate these projects into their plan. So that's just a little bit of additional information. Are there any questions from the PUC?
Quick one, I hope. Leilani, you used the term community scale solar. Could you please tell me what that means?
Yeah. So community scale is what we've been using in our community to refer to projects that are sized to fit the specific community needs. And so, for example, the Mauna Loa West Molokai project, the community weighed in on whether or not they wanted that project to cover just Mauna Loa's energy needs and critical infrastructure, or to be large enough to cover all of West Molokai. And so the community decided that they wanted to host just what they needed to cover their critical infrastructure in Mauna Loa and their own energy needs. And so projects that are scaled to community needs we're calling community scale projects.
Thank you.
And Mike, the other thing that would be different for the PUC and for HECO is the Pala'au RFP was an example of HECO's, totally rational way of bringing renewable energy to Molokai, which is a large project that was centralized. And the community was really clear that they wanted the they wanted to at least explore renewable energy that's decentralized, that's closer to the community, that has what we understand the high, would be more resilient, would have a chance of operating in an islanded way if there was some sort of a, emergency weather event, et cetera. And so rather than one large central utility scale project, these projects are all tied into the grid, so they're technically utility scale also, but they're co-located with the communities they serve and will be designed so that they can operate even if the long line that currently connects them to our generators goes down. Right now, when any piece of that long line goes down, the communities on the other end just have to wait. So that's another part of the community scale definition, is it's co-located and more resilient in cases of emergency. Any other more questions from the PUC?
Yeah, this is Stephen again. I have a question for your group. This is just thinking out loud on our side. I haven't talked to other folks at the commission, but would it be helpful to have a proceeding opened to in some way help facilitate or house some of these discussions about the co-design process, or would it be preferred by your group to continue your facilitation efforts and then, I guess, thinking in our procedural way, sort of come to us with an application? But I think that there could be helpful ways to bring more folks into the conversation and sort of see the progress along the way by having an open proceeding. So if that is a suggestion, I'd like to get your thoughts on if that would be helpful.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Great question. We learned in our first status conference that we're really happy to leave the PUC, how we should connect our process to your regulatory process, to leave that to your guidance. So I really appreciate you bringing this up. We would love to sit down and talk with you about it. I don't think there's anyone who, how should I say, we all want the PUC fully engaged and fully supportive, and whatever mechanisms you think will make that easier is what we're gonna support. So I think we're really just looking for your guidance on this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the PUC? Any questions from HECO about the whole portfolio, the 10 projects, or the ETIP?
I think we're okay right now, Audrey. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from anyone else in the group? Oh, sorry, consumer advocate. I think of you as part of the PUC, but you're separate. Consumer advocate, any questions on this?
Hi, this is just more to clarify, because when you state PUC help needed and PUC permission for HECO's full participation, just to help my understanding, is the notion that the PUC needs to order HECO, or what's being sought there?
I think what's being sought there is for the PUC to give HECO full permission to do anything that the PUC has regulatory control over. HECO has been, up to this point, a really great collaborator through this whole process. And, in preparing for the status conference, our impression was that they want to continue being, a full, really positive collaborator. I'll let Becca speak to that more directly. there were, there may be things around information or around other parts where HECO feels not constrained, that HECO feels they need the PUC permission to do something. And so we're basically asking up front for those things to, and throughout the process, for those, as those things come up, to know that the PUC strongly supports this process and strongly supports HECO's full participation.
Actually, it was going to be a follow-up question that I had for Hawaiian Electric in terms of what does Hawaiian Electric think they need from the
Thanks, Dean. I don't think we need any
PUC to continue to engage with you.
Thanks, Dean. This is Becca. I don't think we need any approval from the PUC to continue to participate in the process at this time. I'm not sure that, we haven't had the discussion yet on what our full participation is, so that may change, but, to continue as we have been and to provide support. And I don't foresee us needing the PUC permission to continue that.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, Dean, let me just add an example that came up in the beginning of CERAP that might explain why we're asking for this. At the very beginning of CERAP, there were a lot of questions about whether HECO could participate in the planning process with Oahu and have Oahu be fully engaged, because Oahu is a developer. So there was the arm's distance around potential, people who might bid on these projects after the fact. We seem to have gotten through that. But Oahu and Shake Energy both are going to play, as you'll see, a big role in the feasibility, the grid analyses and the feasibility analyses of certain projects. And so there might be some questions about that we need PUC clearance, agreement that we can proceed. Molokai is a very small community. There's less than 8,000 people here. We all wear many hats, and we collaborate for the community's benefit. So Oahu and Shake might be an example where we want to, check in with the PUC and make sure that HECO is good to work with us all. Any other questions from the PUC or the consumer advocate?
I have a clarifying question regarding the ETIP. So I know on Oahu, the ETIP was being used for the technical assistance to create a map, for microgrids. Is that the intent for Molokai to create that map to ideal in terms of interconnection and all that? And they have categories in terms of equity. All those things are kind of considered in terms of where next microgrid should be placed ideally. Is that the intent, I guess, for the ETIP for Molokai? I'm just curious.
Leilani, do you want to take this or do you want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. It's probably, I'll say yes and no. It's not, we didn't ask them to create a microgrid map for our island. It might have been nice to have one of those when we were doing CERAP, but we didn't even know to ask for it. And so the community has already kind of identified microgrids that they are most interested in. So it's really looking at those community proposed projects. There'll be potential microgrids around our critical infrastructure because of the way they're located. So I think we've kind of cut up the map a bit going into ETIP and asking them, how can we make this community vision work or how do we need to change this community vision to make it practical. So yes, they'll be looking at microgrids, but kind of in a different way.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that information.
Did you have a follow-up?
No, I'll hold it off for later. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, appreciate it.
I think questions from Hiko. I think Becca said they felt good. Anything else from Hiko before we move on to everybody?
I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Any questions from anyone else in the group or comments? Oh, I thought Lori was going to say something. Okay, well, for all three of the parts of this section about the projects, the question we really want everyone to keep thinking about is how can all of you, the PUC, the consumer advocate, Hiko, and the other folks in the room, how can you help us implement these projects? We've got these, wonderful partners working with us, but each of you knows your organization and your processes and the potential bumps or potholes in the road ahead. Each of you knows them better than we will ever understand. And so we're really asking each of you to kind of see where we're going, what we're trying to achieve, and help us identify the ways that you can engage and support. And so Stephen's example of maybe we should open a proceedings, that's wonderful. That's exactly the kind of thing we want your help to identify and then make a decision and execute. So that's true for each one of these sections coming up. If there are no more questions, then we'll turn it over to Auntie Lori and Oahu to talk about the CBRE.
Okay, I hope you guys can hear me. Good morning. Oh, thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you honorable members of the commission. Thank you for everyone being here today. My name is Auntie Lori Buchanan from the island of Molokai, and I am currently the president of Oahu Energy Cooperative Molokai. Oahu submitted 2 projects to the CBRE RFP in 2022. The larger project is a 2.2 megawatt solar project at Pala'au with a 10 megawatt battery. The smaller project is a 250 kilowatt solar project on carports over the parking lot at Oahu Rec Center with a 1 megawatt battery. When the Inflation Reduction Act was passed last year, HICO asked us if the provisions in the IRA could help us lower the price of all Molokai customers. So we sharpened our pencils and we revised our financial model. Molokai customers, after negotiations with HICO for the last year, we have agreed upon a price in terms for the project. Together, we came up with some changes to the standard contract, including how tax credits and interconnection costs are allocated. The contracts are expected to be submitted to the PUC for approval by the end of the month, and we are hoping that the PUC can review and approve the contracts by the end of the year, as you heard from Leilani earlier. We understand this is a faster than normal contract approval, so we appreciate any effort your staff can make to help us stay on our timeline, particularly for repaying the pre-development that they took out in March of 2022 to pay for the interconnection study. And then I'm going to pass it to Liana. Present the next slide and introduce herself.
All right, aloha everyone. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm just waiting for the next slide to come up. So my name is Liliana Napoleon. I do serve as the workforce and training developer with Oahu Energy Cooperative. It's been an interesting path so forward, working with the community and really building out this somewhat new sector on the island. So Oahu recognizes the strong need of Molokai families living off grid, with a good portion being on Hawaiian homelands without connection to the Miko grid. Most of these families depend on gasoline generators, so your typical Ace Hardware purchase generators, and pay high cost for propane, which is also on the daily, and diesel to run their essential appliances. I do want to add in there ice as well. So a good portion of these families are buying ice anywhere between 1 to 2 times a day. Oahu started co-designing a program for installing solar and batteries for these families and at an affordable price. And when we say the word affordable price, right, it's kind of a loaded word. What does affordable mean these days, and depending on where you're at? So the affordable price based upon Molokai standards and what the AMI currently is at in regards to what our families realistically can afford. And got support, thank goodness, through the Department of Energy, Pacific Northwest National Labs, PNNL, to design a small, so 3 kW systems. Now, earlier this year, Oahu was selected by Sandia, once again with Department of Energy, National Labs, for funding and additional assistance to hire a contractor to deploy 15 of these small systems, so solar and battery. 50 people applied. So we had an application kind of running in the community almost a year, and we were able to get 50 different families in the community who are currently living off grid, not by choice, but for the factor that their lot is not connected to the grid. And yeah, we were able to receive 50 applications of families that are interested. Of those 50 applications, with the funding source that we have available kind of through this piecemeal arrangement with Sandia, Department of Energy, we're able to create 15 systems. So 15 families will be selected to receive a subsidized, so offset cost of this renewable energy system. Oahu really hopes to expand, the program into the future, but just like anything else, it's that initial phase pilot. And as we're able to solicit along the way and build the budget with the need, the demand, and the supply to be able to deploy even more. This project aligns obviously with the CERAP's project, and we necessarily need the PUC and our HECO support in deploying them, though they factor into island-wide planning. Okay, mahalo. Not sure who goes next.
Mahalo nui, Liliana. Sebastian from Shake Energy.
Aloha, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sebastian Solark. I am the Community Planning and Technology Lead at Shake Energy Collaborative. And I was also previously on the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute team that was involved with the Molokai Community Energy Plan. So I'm here to talk about another federal program that was awarded to Molokai called Clean Energy to Communities, Energy Shed. For short, we call it C2C. In this program, the partners involved are the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, Oahu Energy Cooperative, and then the national laboratories will be providing in-depth technical support with ongoing assistance and resource support from Hawaiian Electric and the Hawaii State Energy Office. They are also on this program. Helping to convene all of these partners and providing the project with process facilitation and coordination is the Shake Energy Collaborative team. The C2C program comprises of 2 phases, a planning phase and an implementation phase. And then the desired outcomes for the first phase is to establish a baseline island-wide grid model and an interconnection analysis. So there was mentioned kind of where siting could be possible, where certain size of community scale projects could be possible along the grid. Hopefully we can answer those questions in this phase of the project. But really this phase hopes to deliver a portfolio of community co-designed projects that have been assessed for their feasibility and prioritized for phase 2, the implementation phase. And phase 2 hopes to have a fully articulated list of CERAP projects that are ready for regulatory approval. Next slide, please. So the this award was announced just last week on the 14th, and our first kickoff meeting to start discussing the scope of this project will happen later this week. So we're still in very early days of understanding what this program will fully look like, and how it integrates into the other programs that have been awarded to Molokai. We hope to try to keep all of these, because ETIP is also with the national labs, C2C is with the national labs, and so there's a lot of the same partners involved, but kind of convening all these resources to achieve those outcomes. But what we do know is that these 2 phases will be completed in 3 years, and there's up to $3 million of funding to see it happen. And these bullets concerning PUC help needed and HECO help needed echo what was mentioned in the ETIP process, really just speaking to continued ongoing support in collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sebastian, can you go back to the previous slide real quick? Oop, no, the previous, oh, sorry, it's Leilani. I wonder if you could just speak very briefly to the CERAP projects that that C2C will be taking the lead on initially before they come together in the implementation phase. So which of the CERAP projects are kind of on your priority list?
So the C2C program, as it was so far scoped out based off of the accepted proposal, is really to take a comprehensive look of the island-wide grid. So to that extent, all of the projects kind of qualify to have kind of being brought all together under this comprehensive technical analysis. However, I would say probably some of the priority areas are understanding that community scale project for the east end of Molokai, for example, or we know that the homestead communities on Molokai are really interested in exploring different energy possibilities, energy solutions for them. And so we hope to facilitate discussions on all of those topics.
Thanks. And I think Mauna Loa West Molokai is also a project we're hoping you guys can help us get more clarity on.
Certainly. So ETIP, my understanding is that it's very much focused on central.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
So in order to make sure that all the pukas are filled, we'll delegate it that way.
Great. Thank you so much. One more thing I wanted to say really quickly. We are really just dealing with the highlights here. At one point, Leilani wanted to show you the level of detail that's available in the plan for each one of the CERAP portfolio projects. we don't have details for ETIP and C2C because we're at the very, very beginning of those processes. And we're happy to answer any questions about specific projects. But if you're interested in our SWOT analysis or the issues that were identified and discussed in the course of a project and the description of the project, the sizing, we don't really have sites except for Kuala Lumpur Reservoir. If you're interested in any of those details, it's in the report, and we just want you to know that well, this is a roadmap, it's a conceptual plan. We took it to as much detail as we could and documented it all. The other thing I want to do is do a really big mahalo and shout out to Mark Glick and Sebastian for their incredible support from the Hawaii Natural Energy Institute and the team that they mobilized over the 2 years we worked together to make this plan possible. Jeannie Skog and Andrew Aoki also joined that team, and Mark and Sebastian, I think, attended every one of our large community meetings. It just was a really outstanding partnership. So mahalo to you both. Questions from the PUC about the CBRE or the off-grid project or the C2C? Oh dear, have we put you to sleep? So I'm not sure if it made it into any of our slides, Leilani, so forgive me if I'm getting ahead. In one of our meetings, someone asked, so how long is this going to take? And so when we sat, when we looked at the timelines for ETIP and C2C, our understanding is that if we kind of pause, not emergency projects, but other renewable energy generation projects, fast track CBRE, sorry, you could ask questions about that too. Fast track CBRE, which would bring us to 40% or so renewable, and then give us 3 years to get the rest of the projects ready to go into the HECO and PUC regulatory and procurement process. That's the timeline that we believe this is setting us up for. So we'd love kind of questions or comments on that as well. Was there a follow-up? I'm going to try just a couple more times. Oh, so was there a follow-up question on the CBRE from the PUC? I can't recall. I think we.
Yeah, sorry. This is a non from the PC. Just a quick question. So earlier I was talking about, you were talking about the CBRE program for the 2 projects. Do you have like a time, you're talking about a timeline. Do you have a timeline for that? And because I know what's kind of nice about these projects is close to, facility, HECO facilities, right? So, or MECO facilities. So it's, you have that interconnection, part kind of not taking care of, but it's be a lot faster, right? So it's not as difficult, So hopefully we can expedite that process, and getting it online. I'm just curious, with that factored in, what is kind of like the timeline, for the project, like the major milestones, like, yeah.
Yep. Auntie Lori or Sebastian, I know you have one. Can you summarize it for us?
Sorry, Sebastian can answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Auntie Lori. Sebastian, can you give us the key milestones? The most important one, if you got to start on January 2024, when would it be up and running?
I believe the COD is aiming for mid-2025. I do apologize. I haven't been involved with this project personally, so I don't know a lot of the finer details. But
and Ali is off the call brief. Oh, Ali, you're here. Allie, can you fill us in, Allie Andrews? Maybe she's not here. I knew she had to step away for a call during the meeting. So
I can jump in, Audrey.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, Becca, can you help us?
For the CBRE projects, the GCOD and the contracts is 24 months from date of PUC approval.
Okay.
Thanks, Becca, and I'm so sorry. I was on a different meeting, but I left that meeting and I'm back. And I heard the question. Yes, the contract says that we have 24 months from PUC approval. Although if we are able to get that timeline right now, our goal for COD is mid 2025. So like July, between like June and July of 2025.
Thank you so much, Allie. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yep. Sure thing. My name is Allie Andrews. I am the CEO of Shake Energy Collaborative, one of Ho'ahu's co-development partners on the CBRE projects along with Mono Pacific.
Great. And Anand, did you want any other milestones along the way?
No, that's fine. The COD is fine, or GCOD. But also I was curious that includes all the permitting, everything. So you guys actually, sometimes that takes a while, for the permitting. Yeah.
Allie?
Yes, that is inclusive of permitting. It's ambitious, we know, but we are ambitious people.
Okay. Just checking. Thank you. No, appreciate that.
Mahalo, Anand, for the question. Any other questions on CBRE or the C2C from the PUC? How about the consumer advocate?
Hi, this is Debbie. I did have my hand raised, but I'm not able to join by video for some reason. I'm the chief engineer for the PUC, and if you don't mind, I do have a question about the slides two prior, not regarding CBRE, and the question is for Sebastian regarding the plan. Can you go back 2 slides, please? I think it's the one that has the goal of 100% energy independence. There we go, with the map on the bottom. Okay, so Sebastian, when you say that phase 2, which should, the planning should finish by within 3 years, could you define your goal of 100% energy independence as opposed to 100% renewable energy portfolio?
I think it's more of a community defined term of how the community feels 100% energy independent. I think largely it means having transitioned to renewable energy sources with the estimated 10 to 20% firm energy question that has yet to be really discussed and explored and answered. Does that answer your question, or maybe I can pass it off to some?
Well, actually, yeah, I guess if it was the actual 100% RPS goals, which we're planning to be met by 2045, that would also imply that the current power plant would be retired because in the formula for RPS, it's percent of energy, renewable energy created over the total energy, created, right? And therefore, if the power plant is still in the model, it would, even if it ran on different kinds of fuel, it would still create a denominator that would not lead to 100%. So I was just wondering if that was the goal that was trying to be met, or if energy independence was perhaps by a certain year, Molokai being totally off grid and not dependent, where it had its own energy sources for all of its homes and things, which would not require any connection into HECO's grid at all.
My understanding is that we want to preserve an island-wide grid for the reliability that provides, with the option of exploring hybrid microgrids that can add resilience to various communities. Again, that conversation has yet to be like finally discussed. But with regards to the decommissioning or repurposing of the HECO diesel generators that are currently in place, we also haven't gotten too deep into that discussion with Hawaiian Electric, but as they are a partner on this program, I'm sure it will be addressed. I would say the goal, the 100% energy independence goal, is currently ambiguous on that finer point. As we explore what's feasible, what the cost trade-offs would be to make that transition earlier or later, or to what energy solution.
Okay, thanks. No, that really helps me to understand, what exactly is being aimed for, or that things are still being in the works as to what is meant by that term. So that's helpful that you confirmed that. So thank you. I didn't have any other questions.
Thank you. So again, the PUC or the consumer advocate, any other questions?
Sorry, this is Anand again with the PUC. Just a really quick question about CBRE. So I know what you're planning to file by the end of this month, the two modified mid-tier standard for contracts. So I was just wondering, just when you file that, I know that you probably already have this in plan, just to make sure to provide, because we're looking at the modifications, right, to the standard for contracts. So if you can make sure you highlight those or redline them, that'd be helpful in the exhibits, that is. Yeah, that's all. I mean, just expedite it so we don't have to ask for it. I'm almost sure you guys are going to do it, but I just wanted to confirm that. That's all.
Anand, thank you so much. That is, a fantastic example of how you can help us help you. So like we said, I'm sure Becca already is planning on doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure she is.
But thanks so much for
just to confirm. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
For that
Appreciate it.
Tangible, immediate.
That helps us, right? Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't previously approved the mid-tier, but since you modified, we just were kind of focusing on the modifications. Yeah. All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay. So the PUC and the consumer advocate can still ask questions if something comes to you, but let's open it up to everybody if there are any questions or comments on this section. Or anything that's happened so far. Awesome. Mahalo for everybody's great comments and questions. Leilani, can you finish it up with our last two projects before we go on to your third agenda item? We're not finishing the presentation, but we're finishing the section.
Yep. Okay. So this last slide will wrap up our project section. And these last two CERAP projects that address the island's clean transportation transition and our firm energy options to achieve the last 10 to 20% are both statewide initiatives of the Hawaii State Energy Office. Molokai is super thankful for HSEO's commitment to prioritizing technical and financial support for our island so that all the CERAP projects can continue to move forward together in a holistic and integrated way. So community consultation on realistic electric vehicle use will begin in early 2024 and build on the community data HSEO collected at La Pilina, which was the final island-wide community event in our CERAP process. HSEO will continue to provide the Hui with regular updates on ongoing projects, evolving technologies, and opportunities for funding and technical assistance that strengthen Molokai's community capacity. And MCAH is committed to facilitating the community discussions that help us understand the clean energy transportation transition and possible distributed energy storage opportunities, as well as Molokai's firm energy options through HSEO support, the ETIP program, and the C2C projects. Any questions on these last two?
So we're actually very good on time, and we're so lucky that Mark Glick is here from the Hawaii State Energy Office. Mark, would you like to add anything to what Leilani said about these two, about the clean transportation and about, in particular, and anything you want to add on firm energy?
Thanks, Audrey. And Leilani, great presentation and great discussion today. I think I'm going to take a little sip of water. For the record, the Hawaii State Energy Office, just to exemplify the point that Leilani made, we really deeply appreciate the PUC's leadership and in supporting the community-driven planning process. And we support, and for allowing for patience in the analysis and deliberation of these energy solutions that, we believe are essential to community stakeholders in meeting the aspiration of what Molokai wants the community to be and how it plans to self-determine that outcome. We're committed to support Molokai, as was said, in the next steps of CERAP and through federal and state funding, technical assistance and cooperation with our state and county partners and any other advocacy that the community wants that we're capable of doing. The Energy Office also plans on, we prepared legislative proposals for the upcoming session to support the development of firm energy solutions, including long duration storage, such as pumped hydro and other firm energy. Our technical assistance and advocacy also extends beyond state and counties on occasion. For example, we do support and will collaborate on the Energy Shed grant, as Sebastian noted. But let me just provide a brief update from Molokai on the EV progress. This is under the Federal Highway Administration's 2023 Charging and Fueling Infrastructure grant program. I'll call that the CFI grant program. CFI establishes EV charging corridors, and in Molokai's case, that will result in a fast charging facility on what's currently classified as the Molokai Alternative Fuel Corridor. The Hawaii Department of Transportation was the lead applicant for that, and the Energy Office supported HDOT and partnered with it and serve as the project development and cost share lead through our VW settlement program that we administer. And we also utilize Hawaii Department of Transportation's contractor in preparing the application, which is currently, I'll talk a little bit about where it stands in the review process. A key element of that is another state contract with Sustainability Partners, which is the private sector delivery partner that would build the fueling facilities and manage them. The project's to install and operate a direct current fast charging station for EVs on Molokai, and that's planned to be located at the DHHL site in Kanakakai, and you all know where that is. It was designated in 2016 as an alternative fuel corridor, and we were the applicant for that alternative fuel corridor effort. It's supposed to provide what's intended to provide 24/7 public access that's conveniently located to rapidly charge EVs, and that includes medium and heavy duty commercial trucks once they become available. For the passenger vehicles, it's about a 20 to 30 minute time period for a vehicle to go from, relatively empty to 80% full. So there'd be 4 charging stations there at 150 kilowatts, each with 2 ports. So there'd be a total of 8 ports and then have battery there so it would be able to charge if you had interrupted electrical power, because you still need your vehicles to run and operate. So we're hoping that there'll be an announcement on the awards before the end of the year. We expect to be part of that. And an agreement with DHHL hasn't yet been finalized. You know, they have to deal with all of the other elite trusts at location, and that takes some time. Also, you know, we'll continue to move forward and support the Department of Transportation in its EV charging plans at its base yard on Molokai. They plan to acquire 2 EV trucks, and they're going to install 2 level 2 chargers. Hopefully those will be publicly available, but I'm not sure at this stage. But they also plan on having battery backup for that facility as well. So those are just some of the things coming down the line, and you know, we want to be able to kind of integrate that with CERAP and make sure that, you know, the demands fully incorporated. We did at HNEI when I was still there account for that in our analysis. So, you know, that kind of modest increase in EV use. So I think that's the short version of all of that.
Mahalo, Mark. So again, back to the PUC. Any final questions about these 2, you know, last key pieces, or any of the earlier ones that have come up for you? Okay, consumer advocate.
Thanks. We have no questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Dean. Anybody on the call? Any questions for Mark or Leilani on electric transportation or firm energy? I'll just say we're really, really grateful to the State Energy Office for taking the lead on the electric transportation. We actually did not have an opportunity to focus on it during the CERAP, and but they went ahead, you know, to get statewide, you know, resources, federal resources for statewide progress. And so now we know how to do it. It should be quicker than it was in the past. Now we're going to circle back, as Leilani said, in the beginning of 2024 and take the, you know, the plans that Mark just described and present them to the community and get their feedback, and, you know, you know, refine them if needed based on what we hear back, and so that the State Energy Office can go full speed ahead in helping us bring more electric vehicles to our island and deal with the other issues that we know are on people's minds. So thank you all very much. So this ends. I can't see all the participants. So if anyone's raising their hand, can you please just speak up? But I think this ends the discussion of the 10 CERAP priority projects. And now we're going to move into talking about process and how what we learned from the CERAP process might, first, again, what help we need, issues that the community identified that are related to your planning and procurement processes, and also how this might be helpful to you and other communities as you all look at renewable energy planning in other parts of the state. So Leilani.
Okay. So how did the Molokai CERAP achieve island-wide support? The conceptual framework developed by the Molokai community describes 4 key ingredients needed to unlock a successful Empono planning process in 21st century Hawaii. The first key ingredient is dedicated and trustworthy grassroots leadership that is founded on respect and upheld by systems of accountability. CERAP's core strength can be traced back to the founding of the Molokai Clean Energy Hui. Initial Hui members began building the community leadership team by inviting trusted and well-respected individuals to represent Molokai's diverse perspectives and expertise across the island. Sustainable Molokai raised private funds from multiple sources to dedicate paid professional staff to support and mobilize the Hui's volunteer leadership. The growing Hui established a kahua, or foundation, of important community leadership values and kept each other accountable to uphold those values at all times. The second ingredient is a space for working with off-island or non-Molokai technical partners and resource advisors that ensure all involved are firmly committed to the community's goals and remain rooted in community values. The Hui created a much-needed space for the ongoing two-way dialogue necessary to rebuilding mutual understanding and good working relationships between community and off-island energy decision makers and experts. Together, the Molokai Hui members and off-island resource advisors began to build a new paradigm of community-led energy planning, one that discussed and intentionally redistributed traditional planning roles to ensure projects, processes, and programs were always in alignment with the community goals and values, and that the outcomes produced were something that the community could confidently say yes to. The third ingredient is a planning team with equal parts community expertise and technical expertise. Strong technical expertise is needed to design solutions that are grounded in the physical realities of an electrical power grid, energy economics, and policy. But it takes an equally strong community expertise team to provide critical place-based insights that validate whether or not the proposed solutions are truly viable. HNEI was selected by the Molokai community to be the Hui's closest partner, advisor, and technical counterpart for CERAP. And HNEI provided probably thousands of hours of in-kind technical assistance that truly empowered the community to understand and advocate for their energy future in a clear, proactive, and solution-oriented way. The last key ingredient for Pono planning is a place-based process for comprehensive community co-design. The close collaboration process between the Molokai Clean Energy Hui, Sustainable Molokai, and HNEI, and the Molokai community that led to the development of the CERAP portfolio is also referred to as the comprehensive community co-design process. This approach combined and applied the three previous key ingredients for Pono planning into a holistic methodology tailor-made for the Molokai community. And the results speak for themselves. The expertise developed by the Molokai community during the CERAP process has produced a portfolio of energy projects with an unparalleled degree of public support. We totally recognize that the Molokai CERAP was an unprecedented, borderline miracle opportunity for Molokai, and it was a tremendous lift and steep learning curve for Molokai to gather the support from the PUC and HECO, secure the technical assistance and funding to design and implement this process. And we could not have done it alone. Through the Hui, we had the support of many, many energy experts from across Hawaii and beyond. In order to continue this planning process on Molokai, ongoing types of regulatory, technical, and financial support are needed. Asking communities to continue to carry all of this kuleana, as Molokai did, is an unrealistic ask. So we've prepared 3 questions and a few recommendation ideas to get the conversation started around how the PUC, HECO, Consumer Advocate, and others can help provide support and/or remove some of the obstacles for communities who are ready and determined to plan. Now, our 3 questions are: how do we share this process so that it can be used as an adaptable tool and continue to help Molokai and other communities statewide? How can the PUC, Consumer Advocate, and HECO provide an initial community-based alternative planning pathway for Molokai and other communities through ongoing financial and technical support? And how will the PUC, Consumer Advocate, and HECO incorporate Molokai's experience and lessons learned into their relevant dockets and planning processes to support CERAP implementation and remove current regulatory obstacles? Through our pre-discussions and preparation for this status conference, And from our learning throughout CERAP, we've listed some recommendation ideas that we've come across that would help give an understanding of the kind of support we're talking about when we're asking for ongoing support. So one example is to create a manual or materials and a learning network to be able to share CERAP tools with communities who are ready to plan. Incorporate CERAP lessons learned and underlying values critical to a process in current and future dockets, for example, the energy equity docket, RFP procurement dockets, IGP, HECO, DER programs, or tariffs for Molokai. And another idea was to create a long-term funding mechanism that supports community energy planning. For example, maybe modifying the ratepayers fee to help support community planning. Or we also learned that there's something called an intervener fee, maybe something like that, but specifically for community-led planning. With that, I will open it up to you all. I would love to hear your thoughts, or I can go back to the question slide if you guys want to answer the questions.
Mahalo, Leilani. So I just want to say that clearly this is really an invitation to open a discussion about these really important questions that have been on our mind as CERAP has evolved, has gone forward. We did not have the capacity to go deep on policy or processes to make really, docket specific recommendations or procurement specific recommendations. So we have identified some in our past communications to the PUC. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether there's interest in making it easier for Molokai and for other communities to do this kind of process to support all of you in, achieving the public interest as we go for the 2045 goal of 100% renewable energy. Clearly, we believe this is a good way to proceed, but we'd love to hear your thoughts about how it makes sense for the work that you do every day. So we'll start with PUC comments or questions or Mana'o guidance.
Thank you so much for these amazing ideas and thoughts. I just want to express appreciation and definitely note that these are things we want to consider, especially in the energy equity docket. I know that there's anticipation of our next step in that docket, and just wanted to acknowledge that we are in the process of sort of revisiting our current approach to that docket, given the discussions that have come in and the need for additional community engagement. So that's sort of where we're at, but hoping to get something more public in the very near future. But either way, I think these are great ideas, and I think we would welcome them and welcome additional discussion on how they could be translated to larger communities going forward.
Mahalo, Grace. That's wonderful. Any other mana'o from the PUC? Well, thank you, Colin.
I would just say kudos on the really readable and just terrific reporting that has already been done for CERAP 1.0. Yeah, all the graphics, everything. That type of material is going to make it extremely helpful to replicate, or at least sort of model after. So yeah, I think there's already been great work done by your group to support implementation in other areas on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or suggestions from the PUC? We really are tremendously grateful for your leadership that made this all possible. How about the, sorry.
Oh, no, just to be quick, just a personal note. I know, was that in June 2021, right? You know, we met and we decided to kind of put a pause on this. So I thought it was very helpful. I mean, what I guess the result right now with the CERAP report. And just on a personal note, you know, it's clear this group, you know, along with HECO, Hawaii State Energy Office, HNEI, you know, the community participation, you know, you guys made significant efforts, you know, to address Molokai's energy needs, you know, while respectful of, you know, the culture and environment, you know, to get to this point, you know, earlier you talked about all the community education, which is very helpful. That's kind of what we're considering in the equity docket too. The surveys you guys did too, all those things, you know, I mean, not just one or two, but multiple, right? You know, surveys you have done was I thought was very key in terms of like getting the really full feedback from the community after you educate them, right, about the process. So I just want to thank you, you know, all for your hard work, you know, and it really helps us with the commission, you know, in the decision-making process. Yeah, when you have such strong community involvement and, you know, and actually effort, you know, I mean, like you guys really made a lot of effort, not just as community, but also working collaboratively, you know, with other organizations like the Hawaii State Energy Office, HNEI, Department of Energy, right? Really appreciate that.
Thank you. I want to pose a question for the PUC and everybody else, which I, you know, don't expect an answer, but I really, we really want to put in front of you the fact that the capacity, the human capacity to do this work is, you know, as Leilani said, Sustainable Molokai raised the money to make it possible for Leilani to devote full time. Oahu raised the money to do the work that Oahu and Shake have done. And we were just extraordinarily lucky that we were able to do that. It's not reasonable to think that every community who you would want to engage in this process would be able to do that. So I really want to put on your list of issues to think about the very practical capacity that's necessary for communities to become educated and be meaningfully engaged. It's not an all volunteer effort. So so I know that's a big ask. The other piece is we would not have been able to do this if HNEI had not volunteered to completely fund the technical analysis and assistance side of this and just put amazing people on that task. So there are significant resources that go into this process, and I really, really hope, ask the PUC, the Consumer Advocate, HECO, State Energy Office, everybody who's on this call to think about how do we lower the entry fee for communities who want to engage and help you really develop renewable energy that is in their public interest, you know, and that works for them. Big question. Maybe that's another action item that we have a separate conversation about, but Leilani keeps saying unprecedented, and we don't want this to be, you know, one of a kind, one and done. We have to continue finding the resources to continue this work as well. So I just wanted to get that on the table before I move on to, well, I'll see if there's anyone from the PUC who wants to respond to that, and then go back to everyone, you know, the Consumer Advocate and HECO for their questions. Has this been a discussion for the PUC at all? about, how to provide that kind of financial and technical support to communities who want to engage, or is it a new thing?
Yeah, thank you so much for the idea. It is definitely something that we have thought about, particularly as part of the procedural equity track in the equity docket. I think, from what I have seen in some research, there have been, designs to intervener compensation programs that have made them not super effective. You're kind of maybe targeting people who already receive funding for that work or that kind of thing. So not to say it can't work, but, we'll just need to be very careful and thoughtful in how we design that and ensure that it goes to supporting the folks who need it and might not otherwise have access or availability to it. But your idea of providing technical assistance, I think, is a really interesting one. It's something I think we are definitely looking to learn from you all about your, and this is a great first step, but looking to learn from your experiences on raising the, the collective knowledge on the energy system, our regulatory process, all of those kinds of pieces. And I think just in my mind personally, there's such a challenge of the timing issue. Takes a long time to get folks engaged, to design great process, and all of those different pieces take a lot of time. And I know that's really important, and also we want to take action quickly as well. So I think those are some of the things that are definitely on my mind as we talk about this. But it's these are conversations that we are definitely having internally at the PUC, and hope to bring more publicly as well through the equity docket. And lessons learned from you all are going to be critical.
Mahalo. So Grace, our request to you is please help us engage in that docket in a meaningful way. We don't have the capacity to really follow, dockets in detail. So, please help us figure out how to give you what is most helpful.
Yeah, that's a fantastic request and something that we're working on. I think as part of our sort of reorientation of the docket, we are looking to develop more consistent partnerships with our partners. And so, yeah, be on the lookout for that.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to also add, if there's a comment, I'm going to ask for questions from the consumer advocate from HECO, and then I'm going to ask our Molokai team if there's anything that you want to ask or share about this or anything else that has come up today. So thank you so much, Grace. Anyone else from the PUC?
Just a quick question. I mean, I know during your discussions, I was just curious, was there anything in particular that you found challenging, or, any regulatory challenges, that, you could identify that can help us maybe address,
Oh, Leilani,
I mean,
can you?
you have to you can get back to me a state or two, I mean, you just think about that, I know one thing is that there's always like just get decisions faster. And I know a lot of people say that a lot of, there's questions about that. I was just kind of curious if there's throughout your discussions, if there's anything like impediments or barriers in regulatory barriers that you found that we could assist in. Yeah.
I'll put my favorite one on there, and then I'll turn it over to Leilani. And Anand, I'll also suggest, because I haven't read it recently, you might take a look at the first letter we submitted that in 2021 that asked for our first status conference, because we provided some more detail there. But my favorite is the timing of community engagement. So right now in the RFP procurement process, the community, HECO's asked, where HECO comes out to the community after almost all the decisions have been made. And so it's we asked HECO whether it was possible for us to figure out a way for the community to engage in the development of the RFP, which is where some fundamental issues could be incorporated. And at least in 2021, what I recall was that just, it's just not how it's done. So there's the principle for good community involvement is early and often. And right now that's not in your regulatory process at all. It's more late in the process.
That's something we're definitely trying to address in RFPs as we move to different stages, and we're trying to get that, like even in CBRE, we decided to add in more, non-price criteria in there in terms of community benefits. So that's in the RFP, right? Before it's, approved. So those are things we're trying to add, to the RFP process. So, I mean, anything that you come up with, or if you look at what we have already in there in terms of, the price, non-price criteria, especially non-price criteria has a lot of community engagement, education identified in there, those sections. And if there's something else that you want to add to, or maybe, adjust or amend, you can let us know, too, as well. And I know Stephen works a lot on the RFPs. We can, share with you what we have, because as we move along the RFP process, we wanted to, since the first one, stage one, is actually changing over time, the RFPs, right? We're adding to it, we're adjusting things over time, it's a learning process for us as well. So yeah, especially on the community side, we want to get you guys involved early on in the process. It makes it a lot easier, than at the end, So of course, we want to get you involved as much as possible in the beginning, and that's kind of how we kind of structure the RFPs, the non-price criteria. So yeah, if you take a look at it, and if you need us to share with what we have, we can, you can let us know what you think is helpful or not helpful, or what could be amended.
Yeah, thank you. So please don't hear this as that we're asking for special treatment. But honestly, Anand, if you say go take a look at it, I don't have a clue where I'm supposed to go and what I'm supposed to look at.
Yeah, no, we can share that with you.
If you could share it with us, then we can definitely, with the executive HUI, and we can take it to our full HUI meeting and have people take a look at it and give you some feedback on what your early draft is. So
yeah. Exactly. We would definitely help you. It's definitely where it is a partnership. So we definitely share what we have. And if anything you need from us, you just let us know too.
Great. Yeah, there's also, I'll refer you, and if you might be interested, there's a section, and actually I'll ask Leilani to summarize it. There's a section in the CERAP that's called value-based energy requirements, and it is our attempt to answer your question. So Leilani, would you like to kind of summarize what those big factors are that we are hoping could be integrated into different parts of the PUC process? It's right in front of all the projects. So it's the idea is that these values and these changes would be reflected in all the projects as they develop.
Yeah, so our community's value-based energy system requirements was really just an extension of our conversations, our continued conversations on community values. Throughout the process, we heard very early, often over and over, the same threads of concerns and policy changes and just areas of the typical traditional processes and standards not aligning with community standards. And some of those areas are to do with aloha and making sure that projects require upfront responsibility and accountability with funding for the full life cycle of energy equipment, including the decommissioning, recycling, and restoration of the project site. There are energy system requirements that have to do with our self-governance and independence. And those have more to do with revising the renewable energy planning process to allow for community leadership and allow for the proper community engagement time and space with the additional investment in community learning that we've seen make all the difference in CERAP. We have a few that pertain to disaster resilience and, you know, possibly requiring any new critical infrastructure to have renewable energy systems built in, or maybe some incentives for helping us to get all of our current critical infrastructure equipped with the type of renewable energy systems that would increase our energy independence, disaster resilience, emergency preparedness. We have some in the sustainability realm of making sure that our local workforce is growing as our projects are growing too, so that we have trained and skilled local workforce on island and distributed throughout our island in case of emergency. We have some that address energy equity, with just making sure that the projects or the programs actually make sense and are viable in the Molokai community. And that happens through having the community expertise during the development and design of projects and processes. And then affordability, of course, it was at the top of our list at the start of this process, but the more we learned, the more we realized that investing in our sustainability and in our disaster preparedness, in solutions that prioritize taking care of our aina and taking care of our community, those were more important to us than affordability. But we still want to make sure that projects are cost effective and equitable, fair for everyone involved, Hiko and Molokai resident alike.
Thanks so much, Leilani. Any follow-up questions from the PUC or comments? Really appreciate all your support. Dean, how about the consumer advocate?
Right, thanks. I just want to, I guess, echo maybe some of the comments that might have already been shared. Certainly, as Grace has already mentioned, I think this is definitely one of the key points that needs to be addressed in the equity docket. And as it relates to procedural equity, how can we make it easier for communities to participate in future PUC proceedings? And I think maybe to the point that Steve from the PUC might have made earlier, to recognize a lot of the efforts that Hawaiian Electric companies have done in the IGP process, the integrated grid planning process. They've gone out to the communities, had a number of presentations. I think it is worthwhile to consider whether or not there are possible synergies or ways to use what you folks have been able to do as part of, well, certainly as it relates to any engagement with Molokai, that should be sort of the blueprint. I would offer, each community is different. And again, kudos to your community in terms of your energy and commitment to this, to come up with not only concerns and certain things that Hawaiian Electric should be considering, but also developing solutions for consideration. Because, there are times that, we've engaged with communities and certain issues are being raised, but it's not clear what the appropriate solutions are. So I think trying to explore with different communities whether or not this is a process that works for them as well, or whether or not a different process may be appropriate, is certainly something that should be part of what is, I think, the scope of the energy equity docket. So there are a lot of things that I think Grace might have already offered. I think some of them, not all you folks have developed in terms of your engagement with HECO, could be useful to share with some of those other communities to see whether or not similar energy and commitment would be present, or again, whether or not a different process might be appropriate for those other communities. But I think, it is something that we'll need to make sure we reach out to you folks as we proceed with the energy equity docket to bring in some of what, you folks have gone through and how it can be used as a potential blueprint for other communities to consider as well.
Mahalo nui for that, Dean. And I want to completely agree with you. We're not saying that this is the right process for every community. And as Leilani said, every process needs to be place-based. And I think it's wonderful that you guys are kind of looking at a menu and or ingredients so everyone can bake their own cookies or whatever metaphor we want to use. So here's a recipe or here's pieces and you can make your own. I think that's a really wonderful approach. And we just want to share the ingredients and the recipe that worked for us. And, I know from my experience with other planning processes, it's never a replication. It's always an adaptation. Everyone always needs to make it their own. So thanks so much, Dean. Any questions or comments from Hiko?
Thanks. I think reiterating a lot of what Grace and Dean said, I think these are really important questions. And I think the company has been grappling with a lot of these for several years now. And, I think that's evidenced through the changes we've been trying to make throughout the process incrementally in each stage. And as Dean noted, in IGP, we've actually done a significant amount of community outreach, which is well before the development of the RFPs, right? The last several years, going out to the communities, seeing what the communities want, what they don't want, areas where they may be acceptable to development, where they may not, and trying to incorporate that then into the next round of RFPs that will come out. And as well as, increase requirements for community benefits and other things. But I think there's still work to be done and built off. That's just part of the process. And I think that these questions, the energy equity docket is probably a good place to continue to explore these questions. And as Dean pointed out, see what works for each individual community, and having lessons learned from this process is definitely going to be helpful for that discussion to move things along. So yeah, excited to see where that goes.
Mahalo, Becca. Anyone else from Hiko? Great, thank you all. Molokai team, that's everyone on this call for Molokai. Hui, Oahu, Sustainable Molokai, our partners at Shake. Any questions or comments that you'd like to bring to the table?
Audrey, this is Katie Skog. I'm with Skog Rasmussen, but have had really the pleasure and privilege of working with you guys and watching this whole process unfold. I really wanted to build on what you said about the lessons learned from this and so forth. I really appreciate your comment about the lessons learned being more an adaptation. Molokai was such an ideal site for this because it was self-contained, was totally manageable in spite of the arduous effort it took. But in terms of adapting it, I think in terms of what the PUC or HECO look at in terms of equity, it's needing to define community when you now take it out to a much larger, like to Maui, which is so much larger. How are you going to define community in terms of getting a community co-design to happen? So I don't have the answer to it. I'm just saying, like, do you define it as, okay, let's say the Kihei community comes together, the upcountry community comes together, whatever, and then take into account the amount of time it took for just Molokai to do this process, and then how you would do it when you start to get out into larger communities and really penetrate the way Sustainable Molokai did. That's not, I'm totally in favor of that, but just taking into account how you would do that in a much larger setting. I do also want to say that although it does take a lot of time and it does take a lot of funding, the flip of that is enough to try to do it, because it would save such a large amount of time on everyone's part, including developers who might want to really embrace whatever a community comes up with. Because the way it is now, every developer has to do their own engagement. So regardless of whether they're in the same region or not, if you have 4 projects in Kihei, each of those developers is now charged with going after community engagement, and maybe not really feeling that they've gotten the best feel of the whole community because they can only do it in a short period of time, where Molokai did it in a year. So, you know, weighing all that as you go forward. But I really value the model that this has created in, you know, community co-design. Love that word. And I think there is a lot of lessons learned that can be adapted in other places, but should be adapted. But it's such a large amount of time the way it currently is.
Mahalo, Jeannie, and a great point. And I want to put some words to what you're saying. Is, you know, you're asking the question of how do you scale this up, and you know, and it can be done, right? Anytime you pilot or perform something in a small number of places and it looks like it's really useful, you need to think about how you scale it up. It's not just a direct repetition of exactly the same thing. So it's a great question, which is, if this is worthwhile, how is it scaled up? Thanks for raising that. Todd put in the chat, reminding us about one of the painful pieces of this process was was dealing with the uncertainty of interconnection costs and the process of figuring all that out. Todd, did you want to say something out loud about this? Or did someone else want to speak to interconnection costs? Oop.
This is Stephen from the commission. I can just say that on that topic, that's a very high priority, and lots has been done on the commission side, as well as working with HECO on this. We have hired an independent engineer who's been working for the past year to really help with some of the accountability on the interconnection cost side, and we hope to have sort of lessons learned and things we can implement in various procurements based on the experience from the stage 3 RFPs that the independent engineer is currently working on. But we've recently also started working with an independent engineer who will work with the CBRE projects as well. So we are really hoping to expand our the commission's ability to see and get more transparent information on interconnection costs and accountability. There will be a sort of follow-up report that will be sent to the legislature. There was an Act 201 passed in 2022 that requested information about the interconnection process and recommendations there. So that report will also be forthcoming this year, which will have a lot of topics covering interconnection costs and procedures. So we've definitely been, putting a lot of effort into this area. But thanks for raising it, Todd.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And I just realized I missed quite a few comments, so I'm going to go back and catch some questions. Lauren asked about our discussion of cost recovery and just the need to lower bills for Molokai residents. There's kind of 2 parts to that answer. Leilani, do you want to talk about how, you know, where we are in terms of dealing with the cost question, or do you want me to?
So I guess where we are is not as far as we thought we'd be. You know, at the beginning of CERAP, we outlined cost analysis as like a major part of the technical analysis, but we didn't account for the community going from supporting 0 renewable energy projects to designing 10 renewable energy projects of their own. And so because the scope of the projects and the amount of projects expanded, our technical capabilities during the CERAP timeframe decreased. So we have strong community support on all aspects of this project. And, you know, we received high ballpark estimates from HNEI that we shared with the community. And still, even with the highest possible prices for these systems that we've designed to increase our island's resilience and sustainability, the community still feels like these are worthy investments in our future. And so up next for CERAP 2 is to do more site-specific project design, which will give us more specific cost analysis for our CERAP projects.
Thank you.
Anybody want to add?
Hello, Sebastian here. I will just quickly add that a cost analysis is currently within the scope of the C2C program. And so we'll have national labs support on answering the questions as we answer the questions on sizing and siting of CERAP projects.
Mahalo, Sebastian. It's an ETIP. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's what I was going to say. It's an ETIP as well.
And the most important piece of this is that we will have actual cost estimates for a Molokai project from the CBRE contract as soon as that becomes public. And that's been a big obstacle because, you know, the cost of things on Molokai is always significantly different than, you know, certainly in the US and even in other parts of the state. So I think we've got all the pieces coming together. I don't recall, Sebastian or Lori, whether you guys mentioned the congressional funding that you got to help with the CBRE project. Is that something you want to just talk about really briefly?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
No, that's okay.
This is Allie.
Yeah, I just
I'm-
was going to say if Ellie wants to say something, she can.
Thank you.
I am familiar with that. Very familiar, intimately familiar with the paperwork at the moment. Last year's federal budget included a $3 million allocation for Oahu Energy Cooperative Molokai's CBRE projects. So we are currently going through the paperwork process for that, and that will help bring down the total project costs for Oahu, which brings down the amount that subscribers will be required to pay for their subscriptions, which increases their total savings. So we're very excited about that.
Yeah, we all are. Mahalo. Great. Well, we're almost ready to wrap this up. Any last comments? And I actually have a quick question. There's such great information and questions and next steps in the comments. Mike, is it possible for us to get a copy of those?
In the comments? Absolutely. Yeah. So in addition to this being recorded, which we can put up on the Commission's YouTube channel, I believe there's a way to extract the comments and we can post that to the docket if that's the easiest way for everybody. Or if there's a better way, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Any additional questions or comments from the Molokai team or from anyone else on the call?
Hey, Audrey, this is Auntie Laurie. I'm sorry. I was reading the whole AI capturing the minutes as we were speaking, and I just have to laugh and see that if we could get AI that could talk Pidgin English or Hawaiian stuff, that would be awesome. Then CERAP wouldn't be crap, and wasn't be okay. I'm sorry. I just have to leave us off with a laugh for the day. Love everybody. Thank you so much.
Mahalo, Auntie Lori. Well, this is really just the beginning of a continuing conversation and a continuing collaboration. We're so grateful to everyone who made the CERAP possible. I know Leilani's going to go through a more complete list of mahalos, but I just want to thank everyone who came to this call. Tremendous turnout, outstanding discussion, really encouraged, inspired, and grateful for the work that you all are already doing around the things that we are asking you to help with. So, mahalo nui loa for all your time this morning. So I'll turn it over to Leilani to close out the meeting.
Okay. We are just so thankful for everyone's time today, and really over the past 2 to 3 years. Please join the Molokai community in our quest for a sustainable, resilient energy future. And you can start by acknowledging and using the CERAP process and report as a guiding document for all future energy development on Molokai. You can support us by not proposing any utility scale projects that are outside of the CERAP portfolio or that have not gone through the CERAP process. And you can support us by coming to visit us on Molokai. We know that these conversations will take time, and we know through the CERAP process that building strong pilina and mutual understanding always leads to even stronger collaboration for the successful implementation of these Molokai projects in CERAP 2.0. We would absolutely love to host you all and show you our island home and the community and lifestyle we want to support through the energy systems that we've envisioned for ourselves. Maybe in early 2024, if all of our schedules align. But this is your official personal invite to come check us out, and we look forward to seeing you all in real life. Mahalo, everybody.
Mahalo nui.
Mahalo. Thank you.
Mike, is there anything you wanted to say to officially close this?
Just thank you so much for all of this wonderful information that you shared, for the thoughtful questions that you asked and also answered. This is, I wholeheartedly agree. This is a first step, not an endpoint by any means. So just looking forward to collaborating with you in this docket, in other dockets potentially, and please consider the commission's doors open to you for any questions you have, any thoughts you have about how we can improve what we're doing. We're really just so grateful for this. Thank you.
Mahalo, Mike. And mahalo nui to you personally for being our fearless guide to and through the PUC. You've made it so welcoming and so easy to engage. So we really appreciate you.
It's my
pleasure. I think the one other group we haven't really done two other groups we haven't really done a shout out to is, mahalo nui loa to the groups that did come forward with the resources to make this possible. That's the First Nations Jeff Bezos Earth Fund, Ulupono Initiative, who's been both a technical resource and, really important funding sponsor. The HEI Foundation actually helped us launch the HUI and do the early days of CERAP, and actually individual members of the Molokai community have contributed money to support this effort. So we just want to kind of get them bring them into the room as well. Mahalo nui, everybody. A hui ho.